It's time, it's Vader time. I mean Spooky's time.
Wait a minute, what are we doing now?
Recording you, man. Something you're too old to appreciate, huh?
When I was 6 years old, I was mad on Masters of the Universe toys, and nothing has changed. During this period, my mum picked out my movies for me, which honestly, it's how all the cool kids rolled. But that didn't stop me from browsing the horror section at video shops. Sometimes browsing the horror section at video shops was just as good as being allowed to hire a horror movie. Having a horror movie in my hands and looking at the artwork, I would imagine what the movie was about, and I would make up my own storylines. One night during our weekly visits to the video shop, my mum hands me the Masters of the Universe movie starring Dolph Lundgren. Now this really confused me, because there was another movie that I thought was the Masters of the Universe movie, but it went by a different title, and it even had some of my favourite villain characters from the Masters of the Universe toy line on the front cover. I was wrong, and that movie was called Spookies. See? Skeletor and Leech were present. I really wanted to watch this film due to the cover art. I adored the artwork for Spookies, and I would dream about watching this movie. Flash forward to now, and I totally forgot about Spookies, until I got into collecting horror VHSs and browsing for them on eBay. Finally, I was going to watch this forgotten movie from my childhood, but did it live up to my expectations? Let's find out. Well, the cover art is still cool. I'd admit this movie took me by surprise. It felt a bit over the top and could pass for a comedy movie more so than a horror movie. Let me explain something about the genre horror comedy. I didn't like this subcategory back in the day, and I felt ripped off if I hired a horror movie in the horror section and it turned out to be a comedy more so than a horror movie. I wanted a straight up horror movie. That was just my train of thought back then. Nowadays, the genre is still new to me because I've only seen a handful of horror comedies. I enjoy them so much so that horror comedies are now my favourite kind of movie. Spookies kind of threw me off upon first viewing, but after the second watch, I liked Spookies much more for what it was. The acting was poor, the script was laughable, some of the costume choices were terrible. I especially thought the Grim Reaper was hilariously bad, nothing like the Skeletor on the cover art. But somehow the movie gels together and forms a passable horror movie. Let me explain the plot without giving away too much spoilers for people who haven't seen this movie. A group of teenagers and a middle-aged couple have just been kicked out of a party due to Duke, a hot-headed teen who caused the fight which is not shown. Duke is in search for another party and he's leading the gang by car. Right away we can see that Duke is the alpha male of the group, and you see this throughout the movie. Duke takes his frustration out on his girlfriend and a middle-aged man in the group, which erupts to an incredible fight scene in the middle of the movie. It's worth the wait. How are these people all friends? Who knows, because they are all so different. Duke ends up finding a house in the middle of nowhere that looks perfect for a party, so the gang head on in, not knowing that the house has been occupied by a warlock, who is watching over a woman perfectly preserved in a coffin. The warlock is referring to this woman as his bride, using some sort of black magic to keep her preserved. I really like the music used in this scene, it's brilliant. The warlock needs human souls for his bride to make her alive once more, and he seeks them from the trespassing teens who are partying in his mansion. Of course, the teenagers find an Ouija board while exploring the mansion, and through the Ouija board, the warlock ends up possessing one of the teenagers, which he uses to pass on a message, and that is, no one will be leaving this house alive. The group scatters in different locations, and from there the warlock assembles a team of random monsters to make sure they find the teens and capture their souls. Some of the monsters are hilarious, and they look really detailed. The monsters consist of fighting sandmark monsters, 2 small lagoon reptiles, a woman who turns into a spider. I can't explain this next character, but he looks incredible and I wish he got some more screen time, and a Grim Reaper who steals the show. If you appreciate makeup effects, props and puppetry, like me, you will get a kick out of these characters. I'm glad that Spookies came across my path again, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who is a horror fan. Besides the bad acting, which is something that didn't improve in this movie, I love the creativity that is shown. The monsters look incredible, and I love the imagination put into this film. This is a movie I don't hear anyone talk about, and I've been watching horror movies for years, but I never came across this in my search for a new horror movie to watch. Spookies is a great film, and I really hope you check it out as well. Now, if I can only find a poster for the cover art.